What if the biggest mistake you're making is thinking you still have time? For most people in their 40s and 50s, this hits hard, not all at once, but slowly and then suddenly. The calendar turns, your kids grow up, your energy dips, and you start to sense a truth that once felt far away. Time is no longer on your side, and yet many still act like it is. They keep deferring clarity, they keep gambling with delay. The illusion of endless opportunity begins to crumble. What you once brushed off as "I've got time" now becomes "why didn't I start sooner?" You start noticing the cost of every missed investment, not just financially, but physically, emotionally, and mentally. You realize that today isn't just today. It's the result of decades of choices you've made, compounded quietly in the background. This moment is uncomfortable, but it's also defining because it forces you to choose. Will you ignore reality or align with it? Most either panic and overcorrect or numb themselves with distraction. But the smart ones, the strategic ones, pause and realign. They stop reacting and start designing. It's not about fear, it's about leverage. You don't have the same margin for error as you did in your 20s, but you do have something more powerful: perspective. And when paired with intentionality, that becomes an advantage. No, it's not too late, but it is late enough that aimless ambition won't cut it. You don't need more effort. You need smarter effort. You need a blueprint, because from this point on, every decision echoes. The way forward isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters most, consistently. Time used to feel unlimited. Now it feels precise. And that precision, that's your power if you choose to use it. What if the most powerful force shaping your future is already in motion with or without your permission? That force is compounding. And while most only associate it with money, its reach is far deeper and more personal. Habits compound, relationships compound, knowledge compounds. So do your health decisions, your mindset, your self-talk, and your daily routines. Everything you do or avoid stacks over time until the outcomes become impossible to ignore. Compounding is powerful because it's invisible. Until it isn't, you don't see the effects on day one or even year one. But by the time you're in your 40s or 50s, the math starts showing up everywhere: in your energy, your finances, your emotional resilience. You wake up and realize you're either benefiting from a system that's been working in your favor, or you're digging out of consequences you didn't realize you were building. Financially, this is crystal clear. A dollar invested at 25 doesn't have the same power as a dollar at 45. Time is the differentiator. But it's not just about money. Your body, your mind, your relationships, they all respond to compounding. A few decades of small, positive actions create momentum. A few decades of inaction or poor choices create drag. Here's the hard truth: compounding is always happening. It never pauses. It's either helping you or hurting you, and by midlife, it's no longer subtle. The later you begin realignment, the steeper the slope you'll need to climb. But the beauty of compounding is that it rewards clarity. Start today with focus and consistency, and that curve will start to bend in your favor. You don't need perfect conditions. You need consistent ones. You don't need intensity. You need alignment. So ask yourself, is what you're doing right now creating future ease or future debt? Are your actions building you leverage or silently creating burden? Every decision compounds. Every day is a vote. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to start casting more votes in the right direction consistently and intentionally. Because once momentum shifts in your favor, the results don't just add up, they multiply. Income isn't freedom. Assets are. That's the distinction most people in their 40s and 50s still haven't fully absorbed. They're chasing promotions, contracts, or raises, believing that more income will secure their future. But income alone is a treadmill. Assets, on the other hand, are what step you off that treadmill and into ownership of your time. It's not that income doesn't matter. Of course it does. But if your financial system relies entirely on your active effort, you're not building freedom. You're building dependency. And the moment your energy dips, your job changes, or your industry shifts, that system becomes fragile. That's the risk of mistaking earnings for leverage. The math here is simple, but most people ignore it. Assets that grow, investments, businesses, intellectual property, rental income, even scalable skill sets create optionality. They work when you don't. They build when you rest. Income doesn't do that. Income buys you comfort. Assets buy you capacity. One provides stability today. The other builds security tomorrow. The problem is most people in midlife are still stuck in short-term income thinking. They focus on working harder, longer, or smarter, but always in ways that tie time to money. That's a dangerous loop, because the older you get, the less tradable your time becomes. It's the one asset you can't replenish. Precision in your 40s and 50s means asking hard questions. What do I own that produces income without me? How exposed am I to a single paycheck or a single client? Am I building wealth or just keeping up? This isn't about fear, it's about foresight. The earlier you transition from income first to asset first thinking, the more stability you gain. The longer you delay, the more vulnerable your future becomes. In the end, freedom isn't earned by working more. It's earned by owning more of what works for you consistently, silently, and on your terms. You can't outsource your body. No matter how much success you build or wealth you accumulate, your health is the one system that can't be replaced, delegated, or delayed indefinitely. And by the time you reach your 40s and 50s, this truth stops being theoretical. It becomes visceral. The aches don't fade overnight. The energy doesn't bounce back like it used to. The warning signs get louder and they don't wait patiently. The body keeps score. Every skipped workout, every processed meal, every ignored stressor, it all adds up. And just like finances, the effects compound. The only difference is you can't refinance your body. There's no bailout for decades of neglect. People often separate health from performance, but they're inseparable. Your clarity, your stamina, your creativity, they all depend on how well your physical system is functioning. And when that system is under strain, everything else suffers. Your patience thins, your sleep degrades, your decision-making dulls. It becomes harder to operate at a high level when your body is stuck in low gear. The compounding principle applies here with brutal consistency. Small positive actions like walking, strength training, eating nutrient-dense food, and sleeping intentionally create a baseline of resilience. But neglect works the same way, only in reverse. What starts as minor fatigue or tightness can evolve into chronic conditions. Health costs don't just hit your wallet, they hit your time, focus, and freedom. The challenge is that health results are delayed. You don't get immediate ROI from eating a salad or doing a 30-minute workout. So people quit. They wait for a scare, a diagnosis, a close call before acting. But by then, compounding has already been working against them. The opportunity now is to reverse the curve. Start investing in energy, mobility, and vitality. Not for aesthetic goals, but for functional longevity. Make movement non-negotiable. Make rest part of your productivity. Treat food as fuel, not comfort, and track your health like a portfolio, because it is. Because here's the truth. A strong, energized body doesn't just extend life. It expands it. In your 40s and 50s, health isn't a side goal. It's a core strategy. Your body is the infrastructure for everything else. Busy isn't the same as effective. That realization for many in their 40s and 50s arrives like a wake-up call. You've spent decades being productive, hitting goals, juggling responsibilities, keeping the machine running. But at some point, you look up and ask, is any of this moving me forward? Activity isn't progress. Effort isn't impact. And without intentionality, you can spend your most valuable years mistaking motion for meaning. The truth is, your time has never been more precious or more limited. Every hour now carries more weight than it did a decade ago because your margin for waste has shrunk. You don't get to spend the next 10 years experimenting without consequences. That doesn't mean you can't pivot or explore. It means you need to measure what matters and cut what doesn't, aggressively and unapologetically. Effectiveness starts with clarity. What are you actually trying to build? What outcomes define success for this chapter of your life? If those answers are fuzzy, your calendar will reflect it. You'll say yes to things out of guilt, fear, or habit. You'll default into old roles instead of stepping into what's necessary now. The clearer your goals, the cleaner your schedule becomes. That's the trap. Overcommitment disguised as productivity. And it becomes a costly habit because while your responsibilities have grown, your available time hasn't. In fact, the more life you manage, family, finances, career, the more selective you need to be with your focus. This is where intentional time allocation becomes a superpower. You stop viewing your schedule as a to-do list and start treating it like an investment portfolio. Every block of time is capital. Where are you placing your bets? What's your expected return? What tasks yield leverage? Which ones are pure noise? Intentionality isn't just about saying no. It's about saying yes with precision. It's about recognizing that being busy often means you're avoiding the hard strategic work. And being effective means confronting what truly moves the needle, even when it's uncomfortable. Because in your 40s and 50s, drift is dangerous. Direction is everything. The most powerful thing you can do now is allocate your time like your life depends on it, because it does. Experience is valuable, but only if it evolves. By your 40s and 50s, you've likely accumulated a wealth of knowledge, insight, and instincts. But here's the trap. What got you here may not get you there. The world is changing fast. Technology, markets, expectations, even communication styles, all of it is in constant motion. And if your thinking stays static while everything else evolves, you don't just fall behind, you become irrelevant. Adaptability is the new edge, not because you lack experience, but because experience without adaptation leads to blind spots. You start trusting outdated playbooks. You assume old strategies still apply. You stop questioning your own assumptions, and that's when your edge dulls. Many people in midlife lean too hard on what they know. They use past success as proof they're still sharp. But the real test isn't what you did 5 or 10 years ago. It's how quickly you can adjust today. In a shifting landscape, speed of learning is more important than stockpiles of knowledge. And that's a skill you can train. This is where intellectual humility comes in. It's the willingness to admit, I might not have it all figured out anymore. That mindset isn't weakness, it's wisdom, because it opens the door to learning, to reinvention, and to relevance. The people who stay in the game longest are almost never the smartest. They're the most adaptable. And here's the part most miss. Updating your thinking doesn't mean discarding your identity. It means refining it. It means evolving with purpose. It means staying aligned with reality, even when it's inconvenient. You don't need to start from scratch, but you do need to stay current. You're not being tested on what you knew. You're being tested on how quickly you're willing to evolve. Because in this phase of life, adaptability isn't a luxury. It's a requirement. And the faster you update, the longer you remain powerful. That's your new competitive edge. Comfort is seductive, but it's also dangerous. By the time you're in your 40s and 50s, you've likely built routines that feel stable. You know how your days go, how your job works, what your habits look like, and on the surface, that structure feels like security. But there's a difference between being comfortable and being resilient. One cushions you today, the other protects you tomorrow. The real test comes when something unexpected hits, a job shift, a market crash, a health scare. That's when you find out if your systems were built for convenience or built to withstand pressure. And many discover too late that what they thought was stable was actually fragile. Why? Because they mistook consistency for strength. True resilience isn't passive, it's engineered. It's built by pressure testing your life, your finances, your health, your relationships, your skills. It means asking, what breaks if the environment changes, and then proactively reinforcing the weak spots. It means running drills in peacetime so you're ready in war. Resilience comes from diversification, not just financially, but operationally. Multiple sources of income, multiple support systems, multiple skills, and an identity that's not overly attached to any single role, title, or outcome. Because anything you rely on too heavily becomes a risk if it shifts. It also means designing for recovery. Even the strongest systems get knocked down. The question is, how fast can you bounce back? Do you have buffers, cash, health, relationships, perspective that give you space to respond instead of react? If you want durability, you have to build beyond comfort. Because resilience isn't built by hope, it's built by systems. And systems that last are the ones built to bend, not break, when life gets loud. By your 40s and 50s, relationships stop being background noise. They become strategic infrastructure. The people closest to you either sharpen your thinking or distort it. They either challenge you toward growth or reinforce stagnation. And over time, that influence compounds, just like your habits, investments, and decisions. What most don't realize is that relationships carry a cost or a return. Some are energizing, others are draining. Some clarify your direction, others cloud it. And when time is tight and energy is finite, those invisible dynamics start shaping your outcomes in ways you can't afford to ignore. This isn't about cutting people off, it's about evaluation. You wouldn't keep a business partner who consistently burned capital. Why tolerate relationships that burn your clarity, your discipline, your focus? It's not judgment, it's alignment. Who around you supports the life you're trying to build? Who resists it, even subtly? High friction relationships often don't start as toxic. They evolve through mismatched growth. One person evolves, the other doesn't. One gets clear, the other clings to the past. That mismatch creates static, and static kills momentum. At this stage of life, momentum is everything. It's not just about who's holding you back. It's also about who's pulling you forward. Do you have people who stretch your thinking, who model excellence, who bring calm in chaos and clarity in doubt? Those are leverage relationships, and they're priceless. One high-quality connection can change your trajectory more than 100 casual ones ever could. But strategic relationships go both ways. If you want people who elevate you, you have to be someone who elevates others. That means showing up with integrity, offering value, giving feedback that's honest, not just pleasant, holding high standards for yourself and those you care about. Growth at this stage requires mutual accountability. Evaluate your circle like you would a team. Are they aligned? Are they adaptable? Are they adding energy or taking it? It's not emotional, it's structural. Because just like with systems, you need relationships that hold up under pressure. Who you spend time with affects what you normalize. What you normalize affects your decisions, and your decisions define your direction. Choose your circle like your future depends on it, because it does. The most overlooked form of resilience is mental. By your 40s and 50s, life has tested you. You've taken hits financially, emotionally, professionally, and while the world sees the external outcomes, what matters most is how you've responded internally. Because at this stage, success isn't just about capacity, it's about stability under pressure. Psychological durability is your ability to stay grounded when plans fall apart, to remain rational when emotions run high, to keep moving forward when clarity gets clouded, and that ability becomes a defining advantage when the stakes rise and the margin for error narrows. The danger is subtle. Your mind becomes a loop of outdated fears, regrets, or narratives. You carry assumptions that used to serve you but now sabotage you. Maybe it's a fear of starting over, or the belief that it's too late, or the guilt that comes from putting your priorities first. These aren't just thoughts, they're anchors. And unless examined, they quietly erode your decision-making power. Durability means emotional literacy. It means understanding what you're feeling, where it's coming from, and whether it's useful. It means knowing how to navigate uncertainty without collapsing into anxiety or denial. It's not about being stoic all the time. It's about being functional when it matters most. It also means taking care of your inputs, the information you consume, the stories you tell yourself, the people you allow to influence your mindset. If your mental environment is filled with noise, comparison, or confusion, don't be surprised when your actions mirror that chaos. One of the most powerful mental shifts is replacing judgment with curiosity. Instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" ask, "What is this showing me?" That perspective builds flexibility, and flexibility is the foundation of mental strength. And mental strength doesn't mean resistance to stress. It means recovery from it. It means bouncing back without bitterness, learning without shame, re-engaging without fear. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be durable. That means building routines that anchor you, tools that calm you, practices that bring clarity. It could be journaling, therapy, meditation, walking, creating, whatever helps you stay clear-headed when things go sideways. Because in the end, your psychology drives your behavior, and your behavior shapes your outcomes. Master the mind, and the rest follows. You're not at the end. You're at the pivot. In your 40s and 50s, the narrative shifts. It's no longer about limitless potential. It's about leveraged precision. It's about using everything you've learned, everything you've seen, everything you've endured, and putting it to work strategically. The margin for error is smaller, but the wisdom is deeper. That gives you an edge if you choose to use it. This chapter isn't about chasing more, it's about choosing better. Better investments of time, better boundaries, better habits, better alignment with reality. Not the fantasy of how life should work, but the clarity of how life does work. And the people who thrive from here on out aren't the ones who push harder. They're the ones who think sharper. That shift from force to focus, from speed to intention, is everything. You've already seen the patterns. You've seen what works and what breaks. You've seen what scales and what crumbles. You've seen the consequences of delay and the rewards of discipline. Now the question becomes, are you willing to apply it because the time for hoping is over? Now is the time for alignment. Alignment with reality, with principle, with long-term utility. That means saying no more often, saying yes more deliberately, living not by momentum, but by design. And it means becoming brutally honest about your health, your finances, your schedule, your relationships, your beliefs. The goal isn't perfection, it's leverage, because even small improvements, when compounded over the next 10 or 20 years, will shape the life you're building. You don't need to start from scratch, but you do need to start with truth. Let go of the comforting illusions, the someday mindset, the stories that no longer serve you. This is your window to course correct or double down with precision. The advantage you have now is awareness. Use it, because what you build in this next chapter won't just define your legacy. It'll define your daily experience, your time, your energy, your freedom. And that freedom begins with one bold decision to take full ownership. The next phase doesn't need more effort. It needs better thinking, clearer alignment, and a mindset that says, I'm not done. I'm just getting focused. If this resonated with you, you're exactly who we're building for here at Mind and Wealth Lab. This video was about clarity in your 40s and 50s, but we go even deeper. So if you're ready to take ownership of your time, energy, and financial future, don't stop here. Keep watching our next video. Make sure to like and subscribe for more.